had 200 MIT and Harvard grads working for me. And they knew shit about
software. So not impressed?
No, yeah, yes and no. When you see that, and the people are like, yeah, China is going to overtake it. They overtook Europe already, or US a long time. You can't compare. It's like mind-blowing. For another startup, what I did is I escalated some things on purpose because I just wanted to know how that person reacts if there is a conflict. If I say no. And I had quite a few unpleasant experiences, which helped me to rule out some people. Good. Yeah. Move your ass out of your comfort zone. No, see the world.
You're watching Next Big Wave, the podcast for founders by founders in Southeast Asia. In this episode, we're going to talk about founder journeys, growth strategies, and much more. Just to help me out, if you could like and subscribe, it would be awesome. And let's get into the episode. Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Next Big Wave. Today, I'm with Lars Jankowfsky. Lars is a serial founder, has had some exits, and is currently based in Southeast Asia, where he's one of the founders of NFQ Worldwide, and more importantly, one of the managing directors or the managing director of NFQ in Southeast Asia. Lars, welcome to the show.
Hi, good to meet you.
So I've been talking to Singh about your background, and he's very excited about this interview, and I'm looking forward to learning more about you. Apparently, you're one of the beasts of entrepreneurship in Southeast Asia, so I'm really excited to dig into your journey. So can you kind of take us back to how you got started, what your career was like, and how you came to build NFQ?
Wow. Okay. I hope you didn't oversell me.
I mean, I've checked your LinkedIn and it looks pretty powerful. So no, I think it is perfectly on point.
You know, it's simply because I'm old. If you're long enough around, then your CV looks so impressive.
It's a pretty good CV though.
So I've been, oh my God, I need to think back. It's like nearly 40 years ago now. I've been starting as a software engineer.
Okay.
And then as it goes, I didn't like my bosses.
Okay.
And I thought I can do it better.
We have a lot in common there.
That's how entrepreneurs now act there. We just believe we can do it better.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's really true that we could do it better. So I, with two other colleagues, I started my very first company 1996 or 1997. It was a software development company, and we were three engineers. And we said, like, we are going to work for all the really cool companies, and we do the really cool shit. So what can go wrong with three engineers?
Sure.
So no marketing, no sales, nobody has a clue about accounting. So but actually we got a massive traction that grew the company to 70 people. And then the .com bubble came, and we worked for everyone who was really cool back in Germany.
Okay, this was in Germany.
It was in Germany. And then the .com bubble burst, and so did my startup, because I had no idea about cash flow management, reserves, and so on. So from being really cool and flying high to going low, that went very, very fast. And it was a very interesting experience for me, because I realized that being an entrepreneur is very easy as long as things go well. But then if the going gets tough, that's where you really need to shine, and then to understand like what it means to be an entrepreneur. We, typically in Germany at this time, if we didn't have venture capital or something, so we had a bank credit, and the bank just canceled that, and so in the end the company went bust, and we were there with 300,000 German marks, which is nowadays, I don't know, it's maybe €500,000 or something. Debt. 3 dudes. So that was the outcome. And it was really hard. And my learning out of that lesson was that I realized that it's first and foremost, as a founder, you have a responsibility for your employees.
Sure.
You need to make sure that you hire these people, and you need to give them a perspective to feed their families. But you also must not forget yourself. So you need to make sure also that you are also well enough, because in the end, all the employees, they just left, they had new jobs, and I stood there with the debt.
Right.
So the story was quite funny. I did negotiate with the bank, because the bank, they were like, give me your money. And I'm like, what money? I have no money. Yeah. So, and the others two also neither. So they're like, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, like, how about, it was really cool. So I said, how about I go to a different bank, I borrow 30K. Each of us pay 30K, so you get 90K in total, and we're good. And then they're like, yeah, well, it's better than nothing, because the alternative is just like, I'm bankrupt and you get nothing.
Yeah.
So in the end, they agreed. And the interesting thing is, if you have bad debt, you get a bad credit rating. If you have a bad credit rating, you don't get a credit. So I'm like, dude, but I have a problem. So if you give me a bad credit rating, I'm not getting the credit of the other bank. And he's like, well, the bank can give me a bad credit rating. They don't have to.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Interesting. That's actually
It's very interesting. Yeah. So that's still true till today.
Is it?
It's still true. They typically do it. That's the process, but there's nobody forcing them that they do it. Yeah. So they didn't do it. I took the 30K. So from 300K down to 30K, which was much more manageable. I paid it back over a couple of years and recovered. So that was my first startup.
That's a pretty good story.
Yeah, and then from there, I learned my lessons. So I went into e-commerce. I co-founded one of the very first e-commerce player shopping cart providers in Germany at the time, and that I did with co-founders who knew what
they were going to ask. Did you learn on that side as well?
Yes. Okay. I was responsible for the tech.
Yep.
But the other person did admin, finances, and so on, and marketing.
This was the early 2000s?
That was early 2000s, and it went much better.
Good.
So in the time being, so maybe, so at my very first company, I had engineers in a very small country called Lithuania. It's in the north of Europe. And because in the dot-com bubble, it was impossible to get any engineers. Like even worse than nowadays. So I built my own people there. So I had connections there. And so when I did the next startup, I just built my own team there. So that's actually the beginning of NFQ, because what happened over the last 20 years, that it was never planned to be a company. It just came into reality by accident.
You were training these guys? That was part of the program?
Well, we don't need to train them. They were good engineers.
Okay, they were,
and they worked for my startup. And then my friends came and said, Lars, you seem to have good engineers. Can I also have some? And I'm like, yeah, go there, because I never wanted to work in a service provider.
Yeah.
I rather liked scalable business models. Yeah, it's much more interesting than like dealing with human beings. But over the time, NFQ in Lithuania did grow substantially. And around 11 years ago, when I exited my last startup, and in between this startup was Swoodoo, which is a flight search engine, which I founded because I wanted to find cheap flights, because I really like to travel.
So you built it out of your own problem?
I wanted to solve my own problem. Yeah, exactly. And that was like really, really great. And we wrote in the business plan, one potential exit was to Kayak, which is the world market leader. And from zero to exit, it was 3 years.
Wow.
It went really.
So you sold to Kayak in the end?
Yes. When I went to the US, I became VP engineering there, did run their whole worldwide engineering team for a couple of years.
That's while NFQ was still being built and growing.
And NFQ, so for me, it's like I just ignored it. It's like I co-founded it, but for me, it's like it was just a
service.
Yeah, it's like so. But then when I left, my co-founder Wolfgang, he said like, "Hey, why you don't take care of NFQ?" And I'm like, do we really have to? And it's like, yeah. So I went the first time really into the company, cleaned up a little bit, and then I realized, Lithuania is a really small country. At the time being, there were 3 million citizens. Which is like we were a big fish in a small pond. But the availability of engineers quite limited. So it was clear we need to expand in different countries. My co-founder said, let's go to Belarus or let's go to Ukraine. And just on a very personal note, I said, like, not yet another Eastern European country. It's always dark. It's always cold. It's really difficult. And at that time, I had a friend working for Microsoft Singapore. And he said, Lars, you need to come and you need to see that. This is amazing. So it was 11 years ago. I came to Singapore. I went to Ekelon. I went to Tech in Asia. I was on stage even. I was blown away by the energy of the people. Well, it's unheard of in Europe, the energy and how hungry the people are, especially in the startup scene.
Yeah, Europe is a bad example.
Yeah, I mean, US is much better. It's much better, absolutely. But as a European, I was like blown away, and I was like, this is the future.
True.
I need to come here. So I came first to Thailand because as a German, you know Thailand. I realized quickly Thailand's difficult place at least 11 years ago to find good engineers at scale. So then I am very well connected in the ecosystem here because of Rocket Internet.
Okay. So are you part of anything with Rocket Internet?
No, but we work with them a lot. I know them and I know the Samvers, and so they were like, they had all these Lazada and all these other companies, and all these companies had entrepreneurs dropping off and then doing their own thing. So Southeast Asia at the time was full of ex-Rocket people who built companies. Some of them are still around and really successful. So I could go to all these places, and that was really great. And so I researched Philippines, Malaysia, Myanmar, Indonesia. Vietnam was the last of my list. Because I don't know, it's just they don't do much marketing. I just didn't think of Vietnam.
The language barrier and all that, yeah.
Yeah, or it was just not in my attention. It changes slowly now, but anyway, so I came to Vietnam. I was like, okay, this is it. This is the place. So that's where we started.
So the main operation is now in Vietnam?
The main operation in Vietnam, yeah. So just a couple of numbers. NFQ is like around 800 people strong.
Okay.
400 people in Europe, 400 people in Asia, but the majority is in Vietnam.
And you guys service clients throughout the world? Are you focused on Europe? And what kind of clients do you guys service?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I just told you I came here to find good talent, to service European and American clients. But the world changed. A couple of years ago, I realized that there's a shift. Suddenly, a lot of people are interested in Asia as a destination for selling their products.
Right.
So I was like, man, we really need to go into Asia and build up Asia as a target market. So I would say the majority of our business, even out of Asia, is still back in Europe and US, but Asia has grown. So we have clients in Japan, we have clients in Thailand, clients in Vietnam, in Malaysia, and Indonesia. So this is where we're looking at, and this is where we're also investing.
And it's a growing market for you.
It's an absolutely growing.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, Southeast Asia is changing so fast. I think it's funny you mentioned Rocket Internet. What I'm seeing in my communities and the founders I talk to across Southeast Asia is that when I moved to the Philippines 7 years ago to build a fintech, everything was a copycat of North America or Europe for Asia. Now we're seeing innovative sort of Southeast Asia first products that are then copied in Europe and North America. So things are changing very rapidly. So I can imagine you have clients here as well. And your background has been in e-commerce. Are you servicing mostly e-commerce, or is completely?
If you're watching this and you're a B2B startup founder in Southeast Asia, struggling to grow your startup, we have a whole community of founders just like you. And on a weekly basis, we discuss strategies and growth hacks. We'd love to have you amongst us. Feel free to join at nextbigwave.co or find the link in the description. I'll see you there.
That was like 10 years ago, the case. But also we evolved, the recession. So suddenly there are engineers available all around the world. Still the good ones, it's difficult to find them, but yeah. And then AI, which is hitting a lot of service provider hard, especially in India. And it's like devastating. because all the simple tasks which 10,000 Indians did for large American corporates, you don't need them anymore. Yeah.
Is that affecting your business as well?
Less, but still, absolutely. It more indirect because so many other companies go out of business who are really desperate. So if you're a founder and you have a service provider, software development or something with, let's say, 50 people, you lose one client, you have a problem. And then the people are desperate, and what they do is, a lot of the founders, they try to somehow survive, so they offer their people at cost or even under cost,
Right.
which is definitely not sustainable. Yeah, but they do it in hope that things change. And that affects us because for sure we can't compete with these prices because we need to earn a living. Yeah. So this does it, and so we are now targeting Asia. We are shifted. I acquired a couple of companies. We shift towards consulting, tech consulting more. We are not trying to build a new Accenture or something. But let's say Accenture or McKinsey, or they all do tech consulting. They all have software developers, but they're not really good in it.
Right.
And why is that? Because it's not in their DNA. If you're a real nerd, it's not coming in your mind to work for this company. It's more the white collar people who also can do tech. So, well, I hope they don't kill me that I said it in the podcast now.
We'll bleep out their name.
Oh, it will be okay. It will be okay. And because they do a great job, yeah. But we are nerds, so we're tackling the really difficult things, and so this is where we're positioning ourselves. And so if you go now on our page, you see like deep tech consultants, and for sure we have global delivery. We still can deliver all the stuff we find. And our mission is that we want to scale the business of our clients.
I was going to say, because your mission is to build billion-dollar companies, right? Something along those lines. You've trademarked it.
Yes. I mean, this is a really, so I have now a marketing advisor who's really awesome. He helped me to find out that, and you try to find out what is your USP, and we did build $2 billion companies. Everybody works for $1 billion companies. Pretty much every company has some clients who are $1 billion companies. We have a lot, but we did build 2 from scratch.
From scratch?
Yeah. One is like Kayak, not from scratch, but we were part of the journey very, very early. And till very recently, we provided like a majority of the software engineering and worked there. And Kayak is engineering driven. So the engineers have a lot of power there. And the other one is Home to Go, which we founded.
Okay. So you have kind of an incubator as well, or studio?
Not really. It's just like 2 dudes who have a good idea. So Swoodoo we started because Ryanair at the time being had €1 flights.
Yeah.
Oh, you couldn't find them. You had to click day by day. So I'm like, I'm going to scrape that website and find the flights that you can. So this is how I started.
Cool.
And the other company is Home to Go, which we started, and that company came to life. It's a meta search for vacation rental. Because my co-founder Wolfgang, he has quite a substantial amount of kids, and if you travel with kids, it's really difficult. And if you go to hotels, you need so many hotel rooms. So going and renting a villa somewhere makes so much more sense, but it's really difficult to find them.
Is this pre-Airbnb or?
It's pre-Airbnb, but Airbnb is just one player. And especially in Europe, the really good vacation rentals, like you go to France, you go to Croatia or somewhere in some small villages, and there are people who have 3, 4, 5 properties. They're not on Airbnb.
Right. So it's more niche. How do you guys acquire them then, if they're not on Airbnb, which is kind of a big player? How did you figure out a way to acquire?
We started to aggregate all the sources.
All right.
Started from then Home to Go acquired a couple of companies who provided services for these. So now I think if you worldwide, I guess Home to Go is the biggest player.
Wow.
As of inventory.
Okay.
So
that's impressive.
It is.
So it's funny because you mentioned that NFQ was servicing Kayak. You also sold Swoodoo to Kayak. So I want to dig into that. That's really interesting. Of course, selling a business in 3 years, I'm not sure if the numbers are public, but maybe you want to share on that. That's, first of all, very impressive. But the second thing is, how was your embedding with Kayak? Because it seemed like you were servicing them, providing them developers. Then you built something, sold to them, started working there, etc.
Oh, no, it was the other way around.
Okay.
So we said we want to do the best flight search engine in Germany and in Europe. And at the time being, there were 300 other flight search engines.
Right.
Yeah. Kayak tried to enter the market really hard. And we said, like, we're just closing the market for these people. And we killed them. They had no chance to win. And reason being is we, out of the 300 companies, after a year or something, we were so big that we were substantially bigger than the next 10 companies altogether in terms of traffic. And how do we do that? It's very interesting as a founder. So first of all, I could say we were really smart, which we were, but there's also luck and timing. It's really important. It was 2007. It was a recession, a crisis. So people suddenly were like, I need to find cheaper flights. So they were suddenly interested. Before they're like, I just book on the Air France or Lufthansa page. And now they were like, oh, let's look around. Second, at this time, all the companies did cut back massively on the TV spots. So there were TV capacities available at a huge discount. So we managed to get these spots. So we did TV ads, which is unaffordable nowadays.
Yeah, of course.
And then we were really smart with tracking. I think we did two things. So first of all, at the time being, we had a friend who had a startup who actually, they monitored the voice of all TV stations, because if you buy these super cheap spots, you don't have a media plan. You don't know when the spots, they just squeeze you in whenever they want.
Right.
So we did monitor the audio tracks so that we know when did. Nowadays, that's commodity, but 2007 it was not.
Right.
Yeah. And so that was really helpful. So we would know, okay, traffic is coming. And then the second, we are an aggregator, meta search. So you just click on the link and we move out to some other web page where you buy. So we were using affiliate programs. And these affiliate programs, they had a functionality where they allowed people to have like sub-affiliates. So you could say like, okay, you and I will work together, you are sub-affiliate, so I could track what you bring traffic. So that was the
pyramid scheme.
Not really the same mechanism, but it was, they built that whole system for, let's say you are an affiliate partner, and then you have like 5 or 10 other sub-affiliates, and that's it. So, and I had got the idea to abuse that mechanism and create a sub-ID for every single click, which were like millions and millions and millions.
That was your tracking, basically.
That was my tracking. So I could actually know if you would look in the TV ad, you go on the web page, you click, and then you later buy. I was able to know that you did buy. So we could have the conversion rate. So we knew which ads and how they would convert it, and that helped us tremendously. So we could actually then ramp up TV because we made it like cost effective. And that's how we, they were not really happy about us because we abused their system, but it worked for a while, and it helped us. And I would say these two things coupled with timing made us so big.
And then 3 years. How big were you in terms of, like, maybe not revenue, but like sales or users or whatever? I'm just trying to get a sense of how big you grew in 3 years.
I really would lie if I think about it, but we did fill many hundred planes a day.
Wow.
A day. It was really, really a lot, substantial. And then Kayak came and they simply acquired us.
So they reached out to you guys.
They reached out to us, and we were like these guys, and they acquired us. I don't know. And so you know how Americans are. They are like not like, oh yeah, we're acquiring you. You built something good. Maybe we use it. They were like, okay, let's scrap what we have.
Yeah.
Let's use, but their software was shit, really shit.
So they bought the user base, or they bought you to Chelsea, so they
they bought the user base, the market, it's the brand, everything. But they were more like, shit, yeah, okay. Lars is German. He built something. German are known for quality. Can you help us? Because we have a quality problem. So that's how I came to the US, and I tried to teach this. It was a very interesting experience because when you grow up in the American, let's say, influence sphere, and you hear MIT and Harvard, and you're like, wow,
yeah, of course,
this is like great. And now I had 200 MIT and Harvard grads working for me, and they knew shit about
software. Not impressed.
No, yeah, yes and no.
Berkeley may be better.
No. They learn they're not really good engineers, but they're really good at business. And that's the big difference which I learned. And this is also why the Americans are so successful. Is because we Europeans were like, okay, quality and this need to be perfect. And they're like, doesn't matter. Does it make money?
Get to market.
Yeah, go to market. And for me, it was eye-opening. So I was not impressed by the technical skills, but I was super impressed by their business mindset because that led to the success of the company. It's like super cool.
Amazing. One thing I wanted to go back to, because you mentioned you learned about finding co-founders and not making that same mistake of everyone being technical. So when you found your next co-founders for the few ventures you've been in, what was the process like? Because that's something that people struggle with. Usually what happens is you have all these incubators in the region in North America, and one of them comes up with the idea, and then he goes through matchmaking, basically. And then you end up building something with someone where you're in the honeymoon phase, and then things break because that's not how relationships are built. So how did you go about it? Were you lucky? Did you have a solution or like a system?
Smart question. Really smart question. No, it's one of the most difficult things. I mean, we didn't build many startups, but the few we built were really successful. Let's talk about Home2Go. When we built it, Wolfgang, my co-founder, and we had the idea, we're getting a really smart, ex-rocket guy, and he's going to do the business. And then we do the next. So we found that really smart guy. He's still 10 years later, absolute superstar rocket CEO there. He did grow the company massively. But what happened back in the days is that the VCs, and we had really cool VC, we had some local German VC, Acton Capital, but then later Index, who also did Airbnb. And so from the US, and this was like the best VC for any travel. They were like, cool, we're going to invest, but only if you, Wolfgang, so my co-founder, join full-time Home2Go. And he's like, no, but I don't really want. I was like, then we're not going to invest. That's it, end of story. So I lost my co-founder in NFQ, and he moved full-time into Home2Go.
So that's the story of how to lose a founder.
No, I mean...
No, you find super smart people, but what about on the personal level? Because, the founder journey is full of ups and downs, and you only get tested when things go badly. And that's where like your strength of character, the relationship you have, that gets you through. So again, were you lucky? Is there something behind that as well? Just a great person overall, or?
I think in this case, probably we were lucky, but he's also a great person. I think reading people on an emotional level is something really important as a founder. And I think we learned to do that quite good. And I also learned my lesson. That was one of the things I learned in the past, is that as long as everybody's happy face, it's easy. But when the going gets tough, then you know the real character of people. So not for Home2Go, but for another startup, what I did is I escalated some things unnecessarily.
On purpose?
On purpose, because I just wanted to know how that person reacts if there is a conflict. If I say no. And I had quite a few unpleasant experiences, which helped me to rule out some people.
Good.
So I think this would be a tip I would do also. Try it out. Do create a conflict situation, even if it's not important, and do create a conflict situation where you just say, for whatever reason, no, and just see how the other person reacts.
I like that. Yeah, it's frustrating because you're testing each other out, but that's better than finding out later on if things break, right?
Yeah. I mean, in a personal relationship, in a marriage, if you listen to all the couple therapists, pretty much most of them say the key for a successful marriage is to know how to have a fight together. And if you have people who can't fight, because there are people who never learned it at their home, they just avoid fights and leave the room. Or you have people who have to win under any circumstances. These are not the persons you want to have as a
Ego, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I've been through my fair share of ego co-founders, so I know where you're coming from. So we're both in Southeast Asia. Obviously, my podcast is called Next Big Wave because I believe Southeast Asia is the next big wave in startups and brilliant companies. I want to get your take on it as well. Obviously, you're here too. You've built something great here. What's your perspective on the region from like a very kind of tech startup ecosystem and where it's headed?
Man. So I strongly believe in that area. I just come back from China. It was the 7 days with a group where we did a deep dive into the e-commerce scene. It was eye-opening. I was the last time before COVID. And now, you know, when you see that, and the people are like, yeah, China is going to overtake it. They overtook Europe already or US the whole time. You can't compare. It's like mind-blowing, really. And here in Southeast Asia, I mean, one of the challenges Southeast Asia has, it's that it's not one economic area.
It's not unified.
It's not unified. We don't have something like in Europe, Schengen, stuff like that. It's just cross the border. You have to deal with these issues, sending stuff cross-border. Logistics is really a nightmare. So there are a lot of challenges for that area. But on the other hand, the amount of innovation, what you said, is like is really mind-blowing. Vietnam, for example, is quite ahead in the whole crypto area. It's like NFT gaming, all these things. I mean, also the investment. I mean, when I came 11 years.
Nothing.
If you $50,000 from Eddie from Y Combinator, something like that. That was a lot. Yeah, and now you have $200 million rounds left and right. There are not many $200 million rounds in Europe.
No.
And there's a reason for that, and it's really, really good stuff here coming out.
And even not even 11 years ago, when I did my first round 6 years ago, we were struggling very hard to find any VC money because they were happy to invest in sort of copycats, but anything that was a bit innovative, adapted to the local market, they didn't understand it. They were like, well, what's the proxy? You know? So yeah, now I see that people are fundraising. Like there's a ton of great accelerators in the region, more than I can keep track of, actually. There's constantly new accelerators around. So I think the money is there now, the talent is there. People are learning how to be good coders. In Vietnam, I hear great things about Malaysia. Philippines, not too bad. Singapore, obviously. Have you met any startups where you're like, wow, these guys are amazing, regardless of where it is in Southeast Asia? I'm curious to hear some names that I might want to learn about, or the audience might want to sort of dig into.
Well, I mean, I'm not really in the startup scene, but for example, from Vietnam, Axie Infinity stood out. I mean, they had a big scandal a while ago, but that's still like amazing company.
Crazy execution, so fast.
Yeah, and I mean, I installed it. Tried to play it. Yeah, I uploaded some money. I think I lost that money.
I lost everything on Axie.
But I mean, there were a lot of people, and I mean, they were one of the first. And you mentioned Philippines. There were a lot of people in the Philippines who played it, and
they were the ones making the money. Actually, they were making the grinding on it, and you were investing, hoping to make something. Lost it all.
It was really great. Yeah.
Okay, so no specifics other than Axie, because maybe you said you're not really involved in the.
No, because in Southeast Asia, we target more mature clients, scaling, scale up, and industry. Right. So we're moving into robotics, logistics, intralogistics in factories, stuff like that, because there's a large need for that here in Asia, because there's so much production facilities here. And the market is really cluttered. And in the past, they did a lot of production facilities with manual labor. But now they're changing. You can't have a high performance production without robots, AGV, and all these things and systems. And then you need smart systems with AI and so on to control them. Stuff like that. That's what we're doing now.
So bouncing on what you just said, what's the long-term vision for NFQ? Are you going to acquire more companies? You're going to grow in different territories? Are you looking at Africa? Those are kind of all different questions I have. I'm curious about all of them.
Yeah. Yes to all. So let's start with your last question first. I believe that Africa has a great future.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It's still a difficult market. It really highly depends on the country. The conditions are sometimes good, sometimes not so good. Because I decided I want to stake my claims. So a couple of years ago, I looked deeply into Africa and I realized, it's really difficult. Because like South Africa, obviously is really cool, but engineers are really expensive. It doesn't really make economic sense to go there unless you target the local market. Kenya is really cool, but again, expensive. Nigeria is a really great source for good engineers, but I need to be careful what I say. It's not as developed as you would think. I mean, you really need to worry that you're like kidnapped or stuff like that. And this is not a good place where I can tell my clients, hey, come on over, visit me. This is not good. So I acquired a company in Egypt, which is as Africa light as it gets. Yeah. And a couple of years ago, and I think 50 or 60 employees, so it's growing quite nicely. And it's very interesting. I acquired a client from Sudan. Can you believe it?
That's from the Egypt office?
Kinda, because they needed some very specific resources, and the Sudanese, they needed these like really complex technology engineers, and they couldn't find it. In the end, they were using engineers out of Lithuania, which is really expensive. It's like really expensive, very high price, really good people. So I would have never thought that a client from Sudan would hire our most expensive people. But that happened, and they're still working for it.
And they just love the quality. And
Absolutely, yeah, and they're worth the money. So yes, I believe. I'm not really sure where it's going. Egypt is great. I was a couple of months ago in Saudi Arabia. It was also interesting.
Yeah,
a lot of prejudgments about Saudi Arabia. But the last 3 years, the king changed a lot. So a lot of things where people say like, it's really bad. I don't know. Women are, they don't have rights and so on. That's all not true anymore.
okay.
So I see a bright golden future for Saudi Arabia, and hired the first salesperson there. So let's see how it's going. Yeah.
For the local market.
For the local market, targeting GCC. Yes.
I met a founder yesterday who's in the property tech, so quite different. And he's selling in the Middle East. It's like he's based here, but he's like all in Middle East. He says it's amazing, great clients, a lot of money. Obviously, we know that. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but it's a different market. So now I spoke a lot about your last, but what were the first questions?
The first one was mainly like, what's the long-term vision for NFQ? And you mentioned acquisitions and stuff.
Because anyway, this Accenture already, so I can double down on that. So my goal is that in 5 years' time, in the Gartner report, when there is Accenture, McKinsey, BCG, and all the others, there is the tiny NFQ dot in the corner of deep tech. Yeah. So I'm not. For me, someone like Accenture, I have high respect for. It's rather a potential client
Mhm.
because I believe we can provide the tech know-how and service for them, and we're not going in their market.
Mhm.
But I strongly believe that the needs for tech, because commodity tech in the past, tech, yeah, you do some, I don't know, templates for online shopping or simple things, and all these things which hasn't been done traditionally by software developers. Now it's AI,
Mhm.
and it's going to improve. So what does it mean if you want to strive in the software engineering area? You need to be really, really good. You need to have really smart people. That's what we're thinking for. Like in 2022, we were hitting nearly 1,000 employees. Now I just said it, 800, probably a little bit less, because we sold a big team to a client. So, and I think that's okay. We rather less people, but super smart people. Because that's where we're heading to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And kind of wrapping up things now, I'm curious to know if you could give advice to your younger self, what would that be? And I hope that kind of inspires people who are gonna make moves to maybe avoid certain mistakes, etc.
Yeah. I mean, besides the obvious, to buy Bitcoin,
Same.
which I didn't believe in. It's very stupid. Anyhow, I think move your ass out of your comfort zone. Go see the world. I came here 11 years ago. It was life-changing for me. I should have been here 25 years ago. And there are so many opportunities, and there is no reason as an American or a European to do your startup there, to deal with the bureaucracy, to deal with all these hurdles you are getting there. You still can target your home market, but you can be here, quite like you said, your friend being here, targeting Middle East. You can be here, you can target Germany, France, whatever. There's no problem. Yeah, but you don't need to be there and pay taxes or deal with, because I feel, I have a European mindset. I feel that bureaucracy and regulation went completely overboard.
I agree.
Completely overboard. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here, and I left Germany 2018 officially. So.
Beautiful. Lars, thank you so much for this interview. It was awesome. I learned a lot. You are a great guy. So thank you for bringing him here. And yeah, it was a pleasure.
Pleasure to talk.